The doctors, nurses, teachers, even my own parents, they all thought I was crazy. But I could see them, they were everywhere, all around us, but still, no one wanted to listen. They said I was being difficult, delusional, paranoid. They said I was becoming a podcaster, and so I did. I became their little podcast freak.
Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography. I'm one of your hosts, Pierce Slyden, here with pronouns they, them, here with as always.
The free George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her. Boy, it's been a minute since we got to hang out with him.
I have missed him, and I've missed your take on the freak.
You know,
as well.
The reading of my life, I think. If they don't call me after that, it's never going to happen.
You know, if we ever get to do Spawn 97, essentially, they better call you.
They had better. Anyway, how are you doing, Pierce, now that the world is turning us into freaks?
Well, the president went to a Knicks game and we finally lost for the first time since April, so that was bad.
Yeah, didn't he get booed and then fell asleep? And they were like, "Oh, that picture's from when he was blinking, but it's like a video."
Yeah, it's like he's sleeping.
He
doesn't even really like basketball.
He doesn't like anything.
Like, it's not right. I mean, it's not like Obama, where Obama. There's a lot of weird stories of people who used to play with him at the YMCA when he was a local politician in Chicago.
He has now.
Not saying that Obama is not a war criminal.
No, but the difference between him is that he has a shred of humanity in him, even that he's willing to compromise to do horrible things,
Sure.
But he has interests that aren't just domination and screwing people over. This is the most telling thing to me, and always has been, about Donald Trump. Two things. One, he likes his steaks well done with ketchup. I don't know if that's a meme or what, but I think it's real, at least well done.
I think that might be a meme.
Sure.
That is a thing that Patrick Mahomes likes.
Well, wow. But okay, the thing that is real, though, is his favorite food is McDonald's, which, whatever. There are a lot of people who live in food deserts who maybe that's what they eat too. I've certainly eaten my share. But what he gets is 2 fillet of fish and a Diet Coke. No fries. He gets the fillet of fish, which first off is the worst thing on the menu. And now I can't begrudge the Diet Coke. I won't drink a Diet Coke because it's not good to me. I don't drink soda at all anymore for the last 6 months or something, which is great. But you just 2 fillet of fish, no fries. Do you know what kind of psychopath? That's not even a health decision. That's not like he gets the Cobb salad. That's
the thing is, a fillet of fish when you're a little drunk on the Lower East Side.
No, it's fine.
And you go to the Delancey McDonald's, where anything could happen, kind of hits.
But he just can't enjoy a meal. You see what I'm saying?
True.
He eats the most worthless fucking choice for McDonald's. No fries. You don't order 2 fillet of fish and no fries.
No
and
fries.
If you do, I am
bonkers.
Sorry to target you. Maybe you haven't bombed anyone, and if so, God bless. Whatever. Man, 4 minutes in, and I already feel like it's been an hour because of
somebody did a rough estimate of what it costs New York City taxpayers to have the president show up for 6 hours, and it was like easily millions of
Oh yeah,
dollars.
for sure. Meanwhile, they're like,
So
Zora Mamdani is going to be at this basketball game, and he paid for these tickets himself.
how dare he? He stood the entire time and he was awake.
Oh, brother. Well, you know how you know what? Here's something positive that's new. By the time you hear this, for sure, you'll start seeing my byline on Popverse, the Popverse. I've been doing a little bit of freelancing for them here and there. It'll hopefully continue, you know, whenever possible. And yeah, I'm working over there with
Friend of the pod, Chris Arand.
very good friend of mine, and in many ways a mentor as well. Him and also Graham McMillan, who's also an editor
yeah.
over there, who used to work at Newsarama off and on for a while as well. So yeah, it's been really great working over there, and you know, it's just freelancing. So if anyone else wants to let me put my name on their website, then you know, just yeah, holler at us. My social media is also public. I'm on Instagram. It's at Crypt Trash. So if you want to reach me, I'll check my DMs.
Friendster, still using.
What the fuck even is that? You know what I thought you were talking about was fucking adult friend finder from like 35 years ago on the internet. I don't even know if that's still a thing, but it used to be the pop-up on every fucking like shitty website.
Yeah. Well, George, we're halfway through Endgame.
Whoa. Yeah, we are.
And I feel very stuck in the mud. To do a little bit of thesis at the top here, we've got 2 more issues of Endgame. We're putting pieces back on the board, which is a thing that we've seen many writers do before. And we've had a big status quo change because we've got a new Spawn. However, the facts of Spawn have changed, maybe, allegedly, sort of.
Yeah,
and we're at a weird crossroads for the book. And my first thought was, while reading these, and as this arc has continued, is like, if this was on my pull list, I think I'm dropping it. Like, not because it's technically bad.
Well, I do have some thoughts. I do have some thoughts on that.
I have some thoughts on that as well. But there is this like awkward kind of, we're getting the band back together, but not really, because we don't know. This feels like a story, and this will kind of be my thesis for the next couple of episodes as well. So I apologize to listeners who are going to have to probably hear this a couple times. This feels like a story where they don't know where either they don't know where they're ending, or they only know where they're ending. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it does feel like these middle issues have been a little unmoored in that way. The other thing I'm really noticing is that now we're getting into this stretch, and I get what you're saying about the pull list. Maybe I would be too. I don't know. It's hard to cast my thoughts back that same way. Right now, these are a tough couple issues, maybe even tougher than the last couple. But I think what it really is that there are 2 things against it. And I'm going to say these now, and we'll talk through the issues and see how this opinion changes. I think that's an interesting thing sometimes. Okay.
Sure.
My feeling is that, first off, there's the whole Force Awakens quality about this, where it's like the Death Star and the Empire, but it's a different, and the Empire is different. And this is not Luke Skywalker. This is a different, who has different, but also the Millennium Falcon and some of our old friends like Chewie and Han. And, you know, there's going to be, it's not the exact same thing. We just are doing everything exactly the same. You know what I'm saying? It's become that sort of vibe of reboots where, like, they just do all the same shit, or it's too many homages, or
Yeah.
it just feels like they're just repeating these same notes. And
It's a requel.
sure, yeah, where it's like not really a remake, but they're just doing the same exact thing where it's like the Millennium Falcon and Han and Chewie and three heroes, and they're unlikely, and they're going up against the big weapon of the evil bad guy group. And it's like, sure, I get it. It's fine. It charmed me in the theater. Anyway, we don't need to go back on that. You understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%.
That is an issue here for me in the sense that it does feel like they're trying to be like, don't worry, guys. This time he has questions for different reasons. And he has different questions that about his identity is also the question, it's a different version of that question. So don't worry. And it's just like, it feels like repeating notes and trying to just go back and redo the beginning of Spawn again. And I get the impression of where certain aspects of this are heading. But then also in that same vein, it feels like a creative backslide. We were impressed in those first couple issues with Todd and Holguin back on writing, where it felt like they had really evolved their style to match where comics had gone and where
Yeah.
David Hine had taken the style of Spawn. And not just David Hine, but Brian Haberlin had taken the style and, the language of Spawn. And so now it kind of just feels like, yeah, we went back to that same creative team that was writing the previous issues. And a lot of those issues were fucking great. I mean, how many of those did we go through going, man, this is fucking sick. This rules. This is so much
the stuff
fun.
with your reason, I think actually the problem is that in going back to the well a little bit, it's not just diminishing returns. I actually feel Holguin a lot less here than I did his first kind of time around. It feels a little bit more like those early issues where it was clear that it was very much Todd steering the ship. And then as Holguin's voice kind of got to come through and we got more literary references and we got more...
It feels like he's struggling to be a little less literary, but also still trying to fill the same space with dialogue.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel like comics can be underwritten. They want more stuff on the page. And I get that. And I don't always mind that at all. But the parts of these comics, of these two issues in particular, that work best for me are the ones where they don't have to say much at all. And sometimes I know people, readers and creators and critics, who feel that if there's not enough shit to read on a page, it feels like the writer's taking shortcuts or you're not getting your money's worth. And fair. That is a valid opinion to have. That is that is absolutely valid. There is nothing, I'm not criticizing that point of view or even that style of comic necessarily. I'm saying I have connected more when they have played it a little more atmospheric and hard boiled, because that seems to match the vibe of Spawn a little more. I think back to that arc with Extractor, that first chunk of this. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was great. They were really able to, it wasn't perfect. It had its, down moments, but they were really able to split that difference between like, there's enough going on the page to feel like you're really getting a story without just repeating the same, not without having 3 to 5 pages of the issue be like, oh, I can't believe I have to remember everything that just happened out loud.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as modern. It feels like comics don't really read like this that often at this point in the history of comics. At least the best comics, or most critically well acclaimed and well received by fans, are not necessarily the ones that spend all their time recapping. I mean, look at Grant Morrison's Batman by comparison, where
which is kind of really at its, not at its height necessarily, but it's
in its ascent for sure.
Yeah.
That is a book that is really hard to penetrate. And you can see that across Grant Morrison's work, because part of the premise of what they do is they want to involve the reader in the creative process by allowing them and inviting them to fill in some of those sort of leaps of logic and gaps without having to go back. They give explanations where they need to. There's the whole Batman of Zur-En-Arrh thing where they talk about, it's a splinter personality and all that stuff.
Right.
But there's not as much, in their own words, kicking the tires of the Batmobile. There's not even as much recap. A lot of the dialogue is, again, extremely atmospheric. There's a very David Lynchian quality about Morrison's Batman where the dialogue is almost dreamlike. It's very much a tone poem. And so when you look at that, that is a comic that is wordy. I mean, hell, right around 2006, 2007, when they were in the 1 year later era, and they were first doing Morrison was first doing Batman. They wrote that issue that was like The Clown at Midnight or something, and it was just basically text with like illustrations, and people loved that. I have mixed opinions on it, but
not my favorite, but yeah.
No, but it's an example of like a very literary and very dense kind of comic. This to me is dense in a way where it feels like, again, it's just people having a conversation about the scene that just happened. Okay, today I watched The Running Man, the new one.
Which one?
The new one. Did you see it?
I didn't, but I didn't hear great things.
It was very mid. It had its moments. I actually liked Glenn Powell in it more than I like him in almost anything else.
That's the thing that everybody, even when they have said that it's not great, they've said is like, oh, he's actually okay.
He's got some energy that he doesn't usually have. They let him be like really angry, which is cool. But the editing is choppy. It's about 20 minutes too long, and it kind of does the inverse of the like Force Awakens thing where it's like, well, we're going to do everything different up to a point, and then we're going to twist it this way and all this stuff. And it's choppy, and it feels like a step backwards, especially compared to the original one from the 80s, which not the best Schwarzenegger movie by far, but probably my favorite Schwarzenegger movie. It just has so much personality. Have you ever seen
for me?
Well, sure. That's a better movie. Terminator 2 is his best movie. That's almost inarguable, but the one I have the biggest like personal soft spot for.
Kindergarten Cop.
It's not a tumor. I remember a Wizard magazine where they had custom figures. They did that every issue where they had custom action figures, and they would put little captions over the figure's mouth, like over the figures, to make it look like they were saying something. Someone had made, it wasn't even a custom. It was when they were showing off the Fantastic Four 90s Toy Biz line. They had an Atuma.
Which you own all of.
Yes, I do. Including everything but the like tall, like the 10-inch figures. I have all the vehicles, everything. I have an open Fantastic Car and one in box. Nice. Anyway,
how many Herbies?
One. I have one Herbie. It is a modern one. I don't hate Herbie. I don't hate him.
I'm gonna clip in all the times that you have slagged on Herbie on this podcast.
As long as he doesn't make me look at it, okay? As long as he doesn't come up to me in one of his Herbie bars. Anyway, there's an Atuma figure in that line, and I remember they showed that, and they had a caption that said, "It's not Atuma." And I remember so many dumb little fucking things from Wizard magazine. Honestly, I've said it before, I'll say it again. One of the main reasons I do what I do.
For sure.
Which is talk shit about comics.
That
was a long way to get to it's not a Tuma.
But I do agree with you about like this kind of new era of Spawn just kind of being this amorphous blob of Spawn stuff. Like, and it feels like none of the creators involved are really playing to their strengths.
Yeah, and the concepts feel kind of half-baked at times. Like we've talked about the Elders. Who knows what that is anymore because it doesn't fucking matter. We'll find out something that's just not even, unless the Elders are, we'll get into it in the comic. Because there is just some, like you said, weird mythos stuff where it's like, oh, We're going to this. That's odd.
So I think that one thing that's kind of important contextually for us to do is like we're in 2009 now in terms of like what year it is in comics history and what's going on in comics at the time. Like you said, it is the ascent of Grant Morrison's Batman. However, that's kind of the best thing going at DC
Oh no! And
to
1 year
such
later, there were so many good stories. That was actually when I really was most into DC. Now, I will say it's maybe the most high-profile thing going outside of events, but
no,
like,
well,
I
I
guess by
what I mean
2008. Sorry, by 2008. Yeah,
what
sure.
I mean though is like DC is going to reboot 2 years later. Like New 52 is pretty close to happening and the only two things I guess Blackest Night, that whole Green Lantern run is also kind of happening around this time.
Yeah, but
There are some high
that is
there
what tanked the line. That is what tanked
yeah.
DC's whole. We don't need to get into that.
My so if we look at the big two though, and this is I would say that this is as Image is making its ascent into being the true third in
Yeah,
this
we're
thruple.
heading into the like images the cool shit to read era.
Exactly. And the real like, oh, the Marvel and DC creators who got fed up like are gonna go do cool
We
shit at
had Matt
Image.
Fraction and Kieran Gillen basically ruling the roost with fucking sex criminals and Wicked
We're
and
still a couple years out
Divine.
from that. We're
Oh,
still a
I'm
couple years
talking
out
about
from
in
that.
the peak era of
Yeah,
Image.
yeah.
That's what I was talking
We're but
about.
I would say so. Right now we're in 2009, and I do think that a book like Spawn, it's really the only besides Savage Dragon, it's the only like Image original founder book that's kind of still kicking in a way that people kind of still care about. Its print
Right.
run has its print run has drastically dropped, so it is like just there aren't as many of these books. If you try to get any of these issues now, it is
It's hard to
much more
get. Yeah.
expensive. So the book is definitely in a bit of a popularity lull, but it is still coming out, and it's a legacy title at this point because it is, you know, almost 20 years old. It is trading in a kind of storytelling that doesn't resonate with modern fans in the same way.
Right.
And it is also a fairly it's weird because I don't think the mythos is all that impenetrable, but I do think if you start to like explain it to anybody you know, they'll just kind of like either be like, "Oh, so it's like this other thing." Or
Right.
they'll just kind of they'll be like, "Oh, it's kind of not its own thing. It's just like
Well,
referencing
it's one
another
of those
thing."
things where it's gone long enough that it has started influencing shit that is coming after it. And so it's kind of one of those things where you'll have I'm not gonna you have multiple bands that kind of sound very similar to
Mhm.
like each other. And it's not that one of them's ripping the other off. It's that they both were into the same shit before, you
Yeah.
know? So it's similar influences, that kind of thing. And honestly, weirdly, maybe not even weirdly, I think this kind of approach, not to say instead of what they're doing right now, but if this is what Spawn was like now, I think people would respond better because more of the readers now are looking back and going, man, they just don't make comics where like you get to read all this shit anymore. I think comics that are popular at the big two in a lot of ways are closer to this now than they were in 2008.
Well, the other side of this, so we spoke about DC and kind of, Green Lantern and Batman being kind of the biggest things going at DC around this time. At Marvel, we're like post Civil War, just post Dark Reign, which was a pretty big deal. One of my favorite eras of Marvel, honestly, is that Dark Reign, Norman Osborn era. But Bendis is king.
Oh yeah.
And there's
Well, and
something in this
Bendis writes
comic,
the fuck out of a comic. He'll fill it with
right?
shit, but it's more of a like conversation. I don't know. It's a little
So
old hat now, but at the
but
time,
but that's my thing is I do think that this comic is two writers who are not Brian Michael Bendis Oh, I guess also 24 had been like, because that's the other thing that these issues very much remind me of is something like 24,
I never
something
watched
like
it.
yeah, but like the idea
Yeah, I
of
get it. I get it.
like the kind of like bottle episode of any show where it's like this all happens in 1 hour and you're like,
Right.
okay. And this comics is trying to serve a lot of different masters. This arc is trying to do that,
And
and I do
literally in
think,
some ways.
yeah, and I do think also that there are pivots within these 12 issues. Like we're gonna do parts 7 and 8, and I feel like 1 through 6 is barely a full trade because we've changed directions like 6 times already.
Well, and it ends,
And
it ends on the moment of the angel whose name I don't think we even know yet
we don't.
arriving. And so, I'll say, you know what? We're 26 minutes in. I
Yeah.
think we've done enough setup, especially as we've started calling them 2 years into the podcast, our thesis thoughts. Why don't you go ahead and hit me with those credits?
All righty. This is Spawn, number 191. Todd McFarlane Image Comics present Endgame Part 7. Written by Todd McFarlane. No Holguin here.
Okay.
Notably.
That is
Layouts by
interesting.
Layouts by Greg Capullo, pencils by Will Sportasio, inks by Todd McFarlane, colors by Jay Photos, lettering by Tom Orzechowski. Really sick cover. It is feels like a Mutant Massacre Angel type. You can imagine if I say Mutant Massacre and Angel, what that cover looks like.
Yeah.
It is the angel kind of pinned up by her wings, which is cool. And we ended with this angel showing up and meeting Jim and her saying like, oh, it's great to meet another one of God's elites.
Yeah. And then we open on this one with someone else saying she is, okay, opening splash page. Now, this is going to be a recurring theme. If you've heard our podcast before, you've almost certainly heard me talk about some of this, but there is a lot of very sexualized violence in these two issues, starting right off the bat with this admittedly well drawn and incredibly well colored splash page of our nameless angelic avenger being staked up to a wall by her wrists and her wings. Her kind of under boobs are hanging out. She's all splattered in blood. To the credit of Will Sportasio and to Todd, her face is full of anger. It's very fierce. There's not a seduction to it, but her body is in a very like lurid, like dangerous kind of sexualized violence again. And now I've said this before. I love pinups. I was just talking about Soriyama the other day. I just drew a pinup. Mm-hmm. I love sexy art when it's sexy and intended to be sexy. I don't love comic art that sexualizes a female victim of violence. You know what? I don't even like the word female. That sexualizes a woman or a non-male character or a character who's perceived as a woman. The spectrum of non-men, particularly sexy women who are victimized and compromised and harmed, and then it's shown as like I don't like the sexualized
something that you
violence.
Should be turned on by,
right? I don't like that lurid connection. And I'm not even going to say like, oh, cancel it. Because again, I'm sure I like plenty of shit that many people would be like, well, you're a fucking hypocrite. So sure. But sometimes when you look at it in a comic, especially from a critical lens, if I was criticizing some of those other things, I certainly wouldn't approach that uncritically. And I don't. You can ask my fucking friends and roommates. I'm obnoxious when watching movies being like, well, that's gross.
So this angel is pinned up here, and there's a voice from off panel saying, because in a minute you and I are going to get very, very serious. And she yells at him and says, what are you going to do? Scare me? Threaten me? You go to hell. And she goes, oh, that's right. You've already been there. Your time away has made you even more ignorant. Now, at this point, we have no idea who she's yelling at. It does seem like it's probably not Jim, as that would not make a ton of sense.
Yeah, and we're going to jump back in a second. But also, I don't always love when this happens, and I especially don't love it here. The top and bottom panel are just the exact same panel, like it's just
Yeah, it
picked up
sucks.
and dropped. A, a shortcut I'm sure they took to get to a deadline. It's a little less dynamic. Anyway, we cut back to 60 minutes ago. We're kind of doing a like almost we're cutting back and forth. Yeah. The real problem with this is it's kind of easy to miss the timestamps because they're in
Yep.
like sort of small red lettering on a black background. And they're also on the spine side of the page, which is fine, but like it doesn't work as well as if there was just a caption, even.
Yeah. And there is one in the first, like in that splash. So it
Right.
calls itself out a little bit better. But yeah, you're right. This is what I mean about it being that kind of 24, kind of like almost like, or like Law and Order type, like dun dun. And it shows you like the fucking time of day. And here is where we cut to this angel meeting up with Jim. This is where we last left everything. And she says, "No one told me there'd be another elite already stationed here. They said I'd be doing this solo. Besides, I thought you males weren't allowed on Earth except for extreme cases." And
Let's
the
pause right
night
there.
person, okay.
Let's pause right there because we've talked so many times about what is the deal with angels and their
Hmm.
apparent gender. How does that fit into their hierarchy? Because at times it has seemed like it does and it doesn't. Now, I am the furthest person in the universe from like a gender cork sniffer. You know what I mean? It's just interesting that,
Are we transvestigating the
no,
angels of Spawn?
no.
Okay.
I mean, no. Presumably they're all you know technically non-gendered anyway in a real way, uh but anyway, uh this is now 200 issues in almost, and they're just going like male elites are not always down here. And now I have two thoughts on this, and I don't mean to necessarily just dig into every line of dialogue, but this is an important one to me in terms of the quote unquote Spawn mythos as it's been established. Let me ask you a question, Pierce. Do you
Hmm.
think this is Todd going back and putting a lens on something that he always intended to kind of be part of the angel mythos, or or is this trying to show how the rules of the new sort of rebooted hierarchy of heaven kind of works now that we're on the other side of Spawn sort of remaking everything and putting these new boundaries? Or a secret third thing, just what's your opinion on why we're getting this moment of clarification now?
I think that the initial point of the angels was that they were all women. And then the Forgotten exist and are not women. However, they are on Earth, so clearly there's some shit going on.
Well, and we've seen male angels before at this point. If there have been,
Yes.
we've seen plenty of them at this point, named ones, unnamed ones. And so, yeah, it does strike me a little bit as being like, okay, well, we're going to at least reestablish these rules.
Yeah, this is so again, like with this being a new era, and maybe like arguably people might have only picked up this book in Endgame, right? They might have started with Endgame. They might have been like, oh, new jumping on point for Spawn. Al Simmons is dead. There's new shit going on.
Right.
Here you go. This is like an awkward, admittedly awkward way to start to explain the cosmology of this universe to
Right.
people. It would be similar to, and I guess in a weird way, it is kind of like a retcon in a way. It's explaining a thing that nobody's really asking about, but I can imagine that with all the forgotten stuff and some of the stuff that David Hine did, and uh, like Mother of Miracles and all that.
Yeah.
Mother of Miracles, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, that like there were letters coming in being like, what the fuck? Like, this directly contradicts this other thing that you already said. And we've talked about a bunch of those contradictions over the course of this
Right.
show. But it is, I guess, it's interesting that Holguin's not here on this. And I just said how he doesn't feel like he exists. in this reboot or this return to the title,
At
and
least
this issue is a great
this many
example.
issues in.
Yeah, and this is a great example of maybe Todd just trying to simplify things in an effort to make it a little less dense and impenetrable. I don't think it helps necessarily.
I
I think
think,
it actually
or
makes me have more questions.
it's maybe possible that Holgun was starting to push it in that other direction, and Todd was like, if I'm writing this, I kind of just want to go back to the way I know how to do things a little bit. It's very possible. Now,
Yeah.
the other thing I want to get into because of this is the lore implications here. So, two things. First off, I can kind of no prize this again as like we're getting a sort of reestablishment of these rules. This has two implications to me, or one implication and another question. First off, this implies that Jim Downing is not necessarily a hellspawn. Jim Downing himself is some kind of divine being. And we'll get a little more into that in their conversation because this person knows who he is. He has a connection to God and as a servant of God, not of hell. We will get into that as this goes on again.
Yeah.
But that is a big distinction here. And this is the first real sort of introduction of that specific concept, which becomes the core of their conversation. The other question it raises in me is, what's the deal with the elders now? Are they still really a thing, or are the elders, whoever they are now, the ones who are in charge of heaven and hell? Or are the elders, wait, is it just the elders of heaven? Is that a thing?
It's not clear at this point. It's not clear at this point. We talked about this a little bit last.
Well, no, because it seemed
episode.
like there was a demon there too, and they were both talking about the elders when that was introduced.
Yeah, it doesn't seem not to bring Daring Escapes into it.
Oh boy.
But it doesn't seem unlike that big table in Daring Escapes where like Jesus is also there in that like weird demon dimension. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, the like this is beyond God and the devil.
Right. Which like in Marvel cosmology would be more like the Living Tribunal and
we talked about
eternity.
Right. And then there's the one above all and the one below all, and then there's stuff beyond them, and so on and so forth. It's because in comics you can never definitively have the most anything.
Right.
Unless it's like Batman is the best detective. There you go. You know, that's like his thing.
Exactly.
But,
exactly. And yeah, so again, I think that a lot of this is pretty dubious. I do think it is like a little bit, it's weird. And this book has done this 1,000 times, right? I think that there's a little bit of frustration from maybe Todd, but maybe creators in general, that like it is really hard to start a universe, right? Because now there's a bunch of fucking stuff that you've got to establish. And the problem with Spawn is that the initial universe that had been started got thrown out the window pretty quickly. What with Youngblood, what with Savage Dragon, what with the Image.
There have been a number of evolutions before that official universal reboot in a way. Not necessarily a reboot, but remaking the actual universe, you know? And so to get back into the rest of their conversation, you know, she says she's sorry she scared off his human, the night person. She says, but we're better off alone anyway. God likes it when his actions go unseen. And he says, God, and she says, I know, I question it sometimes too. She tries to seduce him. She tries to seduce him into a rebellion against God. We're just doing like the whole first 3 years of Spawn. It's like the Al Simmons speed run.
But we're also getting like, oh, it's a new Angela. Like, look, this is the thing that you know about, kind of.
Yeah.
Tiffany, unfortunately, already forgotten.
Right. Well, and it certainly seems like she's intended to be a character like that to him, although we still don't even know her fucking name. And I don't know if she'll even get one. Spoiler alert for where this story is sort of going. You know, she is like talking about how males can transcend at will.
She does have a name. Her name is Victoria. It's going to be a little bit before we get it.
Okay.
Sorry to spoil that for you.
So, yeah, okay. So, Victoria here, as we'll learn at some point, she's talking about she came down to get data about the anomaly that's like a sort of a half dead zone. And she's talking about, like, you can't beat me even here without your powers, especially. But then she notices that, like, his spikes are still working. She's like, your body spikes, they're reacting to everything, even me. That tells me you want the same things too. Then take it, take me, and to hell with heaven. Now, this is one of two references throughout this to the idea that Jim's spikes are some
Are
form of
his dick?
arousal, which
Yeah.
I get the impression that it's meant to be like anytime he experiences a heightened emotion.
Mm.
But anyway,
He's just too horny to
he's horny and thorny, dog. He is
Hey, can't spell thorny without horny.
but not horny enough to actually do what she's entreating him to do. He instead flings her off and his spikes lash out. And she says, now I remember you. They warned us, everyone. We all knew about you. And he is starting to ask her, like, how do you know who I am? How does anyone know who I am? Especially when I look like this. We're back in question mode for A Spawn. I will say, I love their fight scene. I think it's
Yeah,
one
it's
of my
fun.
favorite moments of this book. I don't think it's the best Spawn fight scene we've had, but I like that it's not too cluttered with them talking. There's a lot of room for the action to breathe, and you get to just feel the impact of that without them saying, like, you punched me.
And we get a very classic Capullo Spawn rushing towards the reader
Yeah.
kind of panel at the bottom there.
Yes.
Portasio and McFarlane doing a good job on top of that
Yes.
layout.
The one that's like a close up on his fangs.
Oh, no. I mean him like this.
Oh, at the bottom. Yes, flying out. Sorry, we lagged for a second there.
That's
Yes, on
okay.
the bottom of this page. Yeah. And she's saying what you did to God was unforgivable. Okay, every Southern parent.
And he throws her up against the wall with a huge crack, and he is becoming a bit more self-actualized than Al did, and he realizes like he has power and he wants to know why. I mean, this is questions
Here's where we get that
redux.
close up of his like fangs in his mouth and shit.
Really cool. She basically says like, well, that's why God threw you out. You couldn't control them anymore. They've been watching you. Now, this is what happened at the end of Armageddon. This is her referring to what Al did. When Al got the power from the Mother of Miracles to basically remake the world, and Jim doesn't know shit about that because he was in a coma.
Right.
And so he's just very confused.
A lot of people who were in like in between states, liminal states, were sort of left there. And a lot of agents of heaven and hell, as we've seen with Clown. And so she's telling him no one's safe. We know those agents who we now, I can presume, are agents of heaven, are looking for her or looking for him at her place. Which is interesting. That particular dynamic is making it interesting to me that she is a very religious Christian person. And now the people she has to watch out for are angels. I also think that it's kind of interesting. We spoke about Grant Morrison going back to what they did on Spawn. They did the like alien angel, like the angelic aliens thing. And in a way, the Men in Black of heaven almost feels like a little bit of that, because they're like, that's kind of what they're like. And so, she's telling him like everyone in heaven has been watching you. And now we know that's kind of why he was under surveillance at the hospital. We get this long thing where he tries to call Sarah on that cell phone. It's this long string of panels on this one page. It's like it's an 11-page panel. She doesn't answer, and he gets furious and grabs her ribbons, which we know are part of an angel's, array, much like Spawn's chains, and ties her up. And then he grabs, are those his own spikes?
I think they are.
Yeah, I think he grabs spikes off his own body and nails her to the wall. Now, again, This is just
Or it could be
another.
from the throne. It could be from the throne
It could
also,
be,
though.
but it's hard to say.
It's not clear because, yeah, it's not clear.
He basically like pins her to the wall, ties her up. We get another splash page of her kind of back to where we were at the beginning of her, like in another very sexualized pose. This looks
I
like
don't think this one's as
fucking.
bad. I don't think this one's as bad.
You know
This
what
looks
this?
like no. This looks okay. It's if the underboob wasn't like highlighted, you'd just be like, this is the same as the Mutant Massacre Angel.
You know what this reminds me of though, because of the underboob and shit, and because of like her posing. It reminds me of Bondage Fairies. Did you ever? It's a manga
Sure.
that's been around forever, and like in the '90s, it was like
There's some like magic cards that look like this in the
sure.
90s
It's just
also.
a very common, almost like a sword and sandal, sword and sorcery book kind of thing. It's a very pulpy kind of thing. I just because of that first splash page, it's whatever.
Yeah,
So
it colors how you're supposed to read it. So I hear you on that. I actually I like this splash page better.
I like it better. It's fine. Again,
Yeah.
no offense to the drawing of it, like this the technical
Yeah.
execution of it.
But Jim has decided that he needs to go back to Sarah and make sure that she's safe. And he is frustrated because
She knows
like
too much and
this
he knows
angel
not
knows
enough.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he goes back. We see 22 minutes ago. This is where now it gets like kind of weird. I would have rather it had been like 40 or 36 minutes late, whatever, time is progressing now. We don't know when the present is. It's odd.
Yeah,
Anyway.
so yeah, Jim Downing is going back to Sarah's place. He's fighting these heavenly agents. But not all of them. That's actually not all of who they are. There's also the agents of a guy named Gilbert Sanchez, who I guess is one of the crime bosses or whatever. And he kind of feels like the new Tony Twist in a way.
Yeah. Or the new Tony Twist, the new Mammon, the new
Well, he's like a crime boss.
Jason Wynn. Yeah, I mean, but we also don't really know anything about him.
Back in the alley, Sarah's okay. So Jim has to go back to the alley where he left the angel we will come to know as Victoria. But who should show up 15 minutes ago, right before the intro of this issue, which started 13 minutes ago, 2 minutes before the opening page? Clown shows up with a crowbar. And again, fucking great drawings of Clown. I just love the way they handle Clown. And he's asking...
I feel like Todd is really in his bag inking Clown.
Yes.
And he's not as much in his bag inking maybe the rest of the book. I do think he tends to like lean into shadows pretty heavy to...
Well, by this time, Gary Frank is getting really popular. And I think there's a quality that really reflects that kind of art in the way he inks Clown. It's Doug Monkey... And I
was just going to say, yes, thank you.
Yes. It is that style where they have some of that sort of like textured inking, rendered inking left over from the 90s, but they are deploying it more strategically. There's maybe a little bit of like a Frank Quitely that's kind of been disseminating through the industry at this point.
Maybe a little Derek Robertson too.
Sure. They're reaching a point where that clarity of line and the depth of rendering are sort of working in tandem a lot better. Anyway, he is about to torture this poor angel, like kind of taunting her, saying, I didn't know God sent more angels. He's like, you killed Spawn, didn't you? He says, yeah, they must have been spying on me. There's this whole thing where he's just kind of muttering to himself. The thing is,
he doesn't know anything. Like,
no,
that's the thing that we're to learn kind of here, is that he doesn't actually know anything about Jim.
But how much more intensity would this scene have? And maybe this is just me, sure. But how much more intensity would this have if Clown was just like, you've been spying on me, haven't you? And she's like, whatever going on, and he's just like he is. If he was more sparse and intense, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just kind of a backslide in the way he's depicted, where he's just really, really verbose again, but not even in a like vulgar way. Now he's just arch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that if we were to just know that he knows stuff, kind of, and that he can comment on what's going on,
Well, if he was just
he
asking
says,
questions to let us know he didn't know, instead of just being like, "Oh, I guess I better explain this to myself."
yeah, this is where I do think that like Todd being still a relative neophyte on the writing side of things.
As a solo writer, especially, yeah. I mean, there are far more issues of Spawn that he did not solo write than ones that he did.
Yeah, and like yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot here, and I agree with you. It does take away from the intensity of the scene, the pacing, and nowhere is that scene more than the next page where we get four panels checking in
Holy
on Mark.
shit,
We get four panels checking in on our journalist,
Mark!
Mark Rosen,
I have
who's
two
looking in on
problems
stuff.
here.
I mean, I have a lot of problems here.
Well, all the broad ones to me are: one, these are four vertical panels lined up in a row, and at least 50% of each of them is just text on text on text, as he is recapping everything we know, or that he knows and that the humans know to this point, about the hospital explosion and Jim Downing and the miracle patients. And you know what? Fair play. But again, this is just such a long thing that it starts to feel ineffective. And the second thing is, I hate Mark Rosen.
Why?
Bring back Wolfram, because this dude is a piece of
Bring back Wolfram.
If we have to spend time with him or Mark Rosen, dude, girl, dump his ass. He's just ranting, and then at the last panel, we see his girlfriend lean in, and she goes, "Let me see your notes. There's your problem right there. It says you need to spend more attention on your lovely girlfriend, and if you do, all your answers will become clear." And this is like the second time we've seen him that he's been like, "Oh, I hate my girlfriend," because he starts being like, "I don't fucking care. Leave me alone." And he's like, "You're starting to piss me off." And he's like shoving her away. Fuck this guy. And instead of being like, "You're being such an asshole," he's just like, "I'm sorry." Which, look, anyone who's been under an intense pressure as an emotional moment with their partner, where you're like, "God, just fuck off for a second," or whatever. But
Yeah.
this is all we know about this dude and his relationship. This is the only thing we know, is that he hates his girlfriend being around.
True.
And all he wants to do is figure out this explosion and shit, which fair, he's driven, but it's like, she is like the dream woman for every shit man, where she's just like, "I know, you're just an asshole sometimes. I won't hold it against you. LOL.
Yeah.
I'll be back and do something nice for you." All just shit. And it's just like, man, fuck this guy. Girl, dump him.
She also though kind of sucks because she doesn't I think it sucks because I think that this is supposed to be her role in this, is when he's getting frustrated about not making more progress because people are not cooperative, she says, "Just pay him off. That'll
Start
fucking do
bribing
it."
people. That'll loosen
Yeah,
their lips.
start bribing people. And also, here's the craziest part for you and I as working journalists for a time. Uh, you want answers? Stop playing by the rules so much. Buy your way into the story. Get your answers. And I don't want to hear "we can't afford it." If this will kickstart your career, then we can't afford not to.
There's a very Woodward and Bernstein type of like journalism that this woman seems to think is happening, which maybe it still is. Pay for play, well, now it's not even like shady. Now they just buy the networks.
Well, that's true. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I guess Mark has journalism ethics where he's like, I don't know.
It's actually about ethics and explosion journalism. And and she's like also telling him, "Spend our money, because if this takes you further, then we can't afford for you not to spend it." Which, let me tell you something. You can often afford not to spend money.
I agree.
when you need money to have, you can pretty easily afford to not spend it. You can very easily look at your bank account and go, wow, fuck, shit, every
Yeah.
time you have to pay for your fucking whatever.
So we finally get to now, and it is Clown just beating the absolute shit out of the angel
Yeah,
and just
it
being
is
gross, and it
just,
sucks.
yeah, it
And
is just another level of this deeply misogynized violence of just sex. It's on. This is not
we
as
we
sexualized visually,
it's
but
not, but we've said it before
it's Joker
that
beating
there's
the
not a
shit
lot
out of
of
Jason Todd. It's just
yeah.
lurid.
Well, and there's not a lot of women in Spawn comics to begin with, especially women who get agency. And we now have had 3 in this one, right? We have annoying girlfriend stereotype.
Who needs?
We
She's
have
his damsel.
yeah, who we have a woman who is going to be assaulted, and then we have other woman who is being menaced
And
actively.
thanking him for it.
Yeah.
Which,
So,
I get it. It's meant to be flirty. I'm sure that is meant to be read as a like,
oh, I was
you
talking
know,
about Sarah.
I thought she was the annoying girlfriend.
Oh no, annoying girlfriend is Mark's girlfriend,
Sure.
who's
You
just
know
like,
what? The
you're just being
problem, you know what the
annoying.
problem is? We can interpret any of them any of
I
those
know.
ways because
It's a
all of
great
them
point.
are also defined by their relationship to men. Because Sarah is only defined by her relationship to Jim Downing.
There it
The
is.
girlfriend, Mark's girlfriend, is only defined by her being willing to flirt through his abuse. And of course, this angel, Victoria, in this story is only defined, and her fate is only defined by the fact that Clown will taunt her into kind of having her, like, she will taunt him, sorry, into escalating his violence against her. Now, I love these panels artistically here of him turning into Violator.
Yeah,
Maybe one
so
of my
cool.
favorite Clown to Violator like transitions, the way his hair starts to turn into the horns and everything.
Yeah, really
And
cool.
he said, as he starts to turn into the Violator, he says, "Is it clear who you're dealing with?" And she says, "I'm not afraid." And he says, "You're not paying attention, and you're right. I can't kill you on Earth, but I've lived long enough to know there are things worse, far worse than death, especially for an angel. Let me demonstrate." And I don't think it's not for nothing. There's a hyphen in demonstrate, so it kind of says, "Let me demonstrate."
Yeah,
And
kind of fun little Orzakowski.
again, though, imagine if this just said, "I'm not afraid," and he said, "Then you're not paying attention." And then we cut to the
Yeah,
next panel where it's her scream echoing over the city. We'll find
and
out
then we
what
get a
happened
sick
right
splash
now.
page, though.
It is, again, the art is fucking awesome, as Clown is just half Violator Clown is ripping off her wings. And again, like you said, there's a mutant massacre sort of thing to it.
Element, yeah.
But this is not a character we've known since 1963. This is a character we've known for 4 issues, and we don't even have her name. We have
She only
watched
has
her get
6.
beaten with
She
a
only has 6
crowbar.
total appearances.
We have watched her get beaten with a crowbar, had her wings torn off. And the only things we know about her are, 1, she is supposed to be an elite agent, and 2, not her fucking name. And the more I
Yeah.
think about it, the more pissed off I am that that's what's happening here. We don't even get her name before we watch her fully debased. And knowing she only gets 6 appearances, the only story potential that comes from this is the idea that we will learn later that this can transubstantiate her into a mortal form. Something that, again, we'll get into when we get there, the quote unquote lore implications of that. Okay,
It's
so
rough.
now Spawn's foil could be an angel on Earth. That would actually be an angel turned human. Would actually be a pretty interesting third character between Jim and Sarah. Sarah, who is a true believer, Jim, who has been rejected by God, and this angel who has fallen from grace through debasement by a demon, who now has all this perspective on God. The You want to get into the like literary shit, have her and
I mean, there's
Sarah hang
something
out.
more. there's something interesting here, but I don't think that this comic and
Again,
it's
if there's
and
no story coming out of this, I hate to know that, because it just makes it worse, because it's like, I thought this was going to be like she's going to be here, but
I
man,
think unfortunately the next issue does prove to us that there's not story there.
no. Nope. And
And with that,
I'm annoyed as fuck about that, and so Pierce fucking grate me with those credits.
it's gonna be Spawn number 192, Endgame. Todd McFarlane and Image Comics present Endgame Part 8. Written by Todd McFarlane, pencils by Will Sportasio, inks by Todd McFarlane, colors by Jay Photos, lettering by Tom Warzakowski. So no Greg Pula this time,
Right.
notably. And
Yes.
it's pretty clear from the outset. I'll say that whatever he was doing on layouts was smoothing out, I think, the things I don't really like about Portasio's art here. However,
I feel
as
50
this
50
is,
on that.
there are moments that are incredible. I also do think that some of the layouts are just like a little less inspired. I do not love. All right, let me put this in a way that makes a little bit more sense for my thought process, which is I think that sometimes we got Todd inking Capullo even though the pencils were Portasio.
Well, and I think that's what made it super inconsistent in those issues, is that
I agree, but
there were
sometimes when it was
pages that
great,
they all looked like, I don't know that any of those pages
yeah, I don't
were
know.
that great, because I can't help but think of the great Todd and Greg pages that exist. And that's not to undersell Will Portasio as a artist who is rising to this book, I think. But I think when he is allowed to do his own layouts and stuff,
It
his
plays
art,
maybe a little bit more to his strengths, is
and
what you're
he's
saying.
allowed to, when he, and maybe not even allowed to, because I'm sure Greg jumping in was not only probably an honor for, an artist who has probably known Greg for years,
Oh, of
to work
course.
with him in this way, and also to get a prestigious person on board the Spawn comic. I'm sure it
Yeah.
was, I hope it was a great working experience and a wonderful artistic collaboration for all of them in that regard. At the same time, I feel like that lens of like someone else's layout, someone else's maybe even like character dynamics a little bit versus his. The art here may not have as many flashy moments,
Mm.
but I think it is more consistent. And I think, especially for a book like this right now, I'll take the consistency. So, moving into the issue now, and
Yep.
we'll talk more about that art and the consistency of it. I will say, this first page looks to me like a Will Portasio era Uncanny X-Men page.
Yeah,
And
totally.
maybe it's because this guy has a little bit of an Xavier look, but it's also the inking style and the rendering style that he does that is reminiscent of that Jim Lee era. And if you look, I think the coloring is even playing into that a little bit. That first panel, there's that highlight on his face. That is a very like watercolor ink era style of like highlight and rendering. So it is this guy here who looks, this bald fellow is a guy who, I think it was last issue, or in the last
It was a
episode,
couple issues ago
not in
that
last issue, but the
Clown had
one before.
recruited.
Clown, yes, basically coerced him into following him in his quest to become the ruler of hell by uniting the demons on Earth. He killed his dogs. We hated that. But now he's doing what Clown wants, and he's kind of acting as an enforcer. He's showing up to this club that is having a private party, invite only. He shows up, and the bouncer says, "Where's your invite?" And he says, "I don't have one." And the bouncer says, "Like I said, this is a private party." And he says, "I'm not here for the party. I have business." And the guy says, "What kind of business?" And he says, "The kind they don't let guys like you know about. But if it makes it easier, I was sent by Lucas." And whatever that name is, whoever Lucas is, it
Says
gets him
go
in the
on in.
door. Yeah. We get into the party. This is a very like Dark Knight club scene kind of moment where,
Yeah.
like, when he goes in and confronts Carmine Falcone, and he like punches his way. There's a similar scene in the Batman, which is a
Mhm.
Force Awakens remake of The Dark Knight. It's even a fine movie. The Batman's fine, but it really is just the palette swap of that.
Yeah, trying to hit the same beats
Yeah.
without doing the
It's
exact
another
same
like, oh,
thing.
we're doing a grounded Batman at different stages of his career. Cool. It's a good movie though.
I'm excited for the Batman too.
Sure, so am I. Batman was a great movie, and
I'm excited for Clayface more actually.
yeah, that looks cool. That's also not connected though. That's connected to Superman and shit.
I don't care. It looks cool.
Yeah. But also I love the Penguin. Great show. Fucking great.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, it's one of those where he goes in and he says, I'm looking for Claudio. And they're all like, Claudio? I don't think I heard of him.
Big Coheed and Cambria fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say. And he's just asking around, they're saying, I've never heard of the guy. And someone comes up and says, you're harassing the customers. They have this exchange. He says, are you looking I'm looking for Claudio. Is he here or isn't he? And is he here or isn't he? Is he here or isn't he? And the bouncer's like, it's time for you to leave. And so he starts walking away. They take him outside of the alley. He says, don't be seen in this neighborhood again. And he's just saying that went well. And as he's walking away, the guy takes a step forward and says, why are you looking for Claudio? Yeah, the storytelling on this is weird. Anyway, the
All
guys
this is like a little bit weird. Basically, he leaves the club. Somebody steps forward.
The guys who are
like,
kicking him out follow him into the alley, and they're like, why are you looking for Claudio? And he says, he doesn't say anything, but the other guy grabs him and he says, you're making a mistake. And he says, he didn't tell me he was expecting anyone tonight. They're saying, basically doing the thug thing, the henchman thing of being like, he didn't tell me you were coming. Doesn't seem like you have an appointment. We're threatening.
Yeah, who are you?
Yeah. Meanwhile, some random dude and his girlfriend wander down into the alley at the wrong moment, and we get a very 80s horror movie kind of scene here where these two poor drunk people come in, and the two guys who are like the bouncers slash whoever turn around and and punches the guy like through his chest.
This like blonde guy who's been talking most of the time just punches this guy through the chest and cuts off this woman's head,
rips it off
in a way that was very confusing to me the first time I read it, but I was like, it's fine.
Now he's like a vampire. He's in like full vampire mode. He's got like claws and fangs and his red eyes and everything. And the guys, the bouncer guy with the blonde hair is like, now I either kill you or make you one of us. And the bald guy is like, you don't want to do that. And he says, yes, I do. The vampire says, yes, I do. And bites the bald guy, who we know is a demon, and his demonic blood basically poisons this vampire. And just like Clown coerced him, he coerces this guy into doing his bidding. I love their little fight scene here. First off, I really like the coloring on the guy. I love the colors on this. I love the way that he has this like gray, like ghoulish flesh. I love how it plays with him like vomiting like this gnarly blood after he bites the demon. And I just really like this whole sequence. I love the next 2 pages. The next 2 pages are probably my favorite in both issues, both because of the quality and rendering of the art, but also just because, again, it's allowed to just have a little bit of a quick pacing. The demon, who looks like similar to maybe a Violator in a way, his jaw distends. He sort of almost looks like Baraka from Mortal Kombat.
He looks exactly like that, with like shark teeth and a bald head and red eyes, and he chomps off the
guy goes to
arm.
punch him, and he takes his whole arm down his throat. He's like a gluttony demon or something. It's super cool. And then he punches the other guy's fucking head off. Another demon, or sorry, another vampire jumps in and he rips her head off. And they're like, what are you? And this is a very like very classic, like 80s horror movie type thing, or
Yeah.
like a Terminator moment where the gangsters confront him thinking they're badass and he just tears them apart. In this case, it just
Yeah.
happens to be vampires getting torn apart by a demon. I like this whole sequence. The colors really make it for me. And also the pacing and stuff, the storytelling, again, goes back to those early X-Men days, which works really well for action beats like this, I think.
Yeah.
Like story-driven
Meanwhile,
action.
deep in the alleyways,
Oh,
Jim has
just to say, there's one important point that happens here, which is the blonde vampire is the only one that's left. And the demon tells him, if you want that poison, if you out of your system, if you want to be cured, you have to work for me. So just as Clown coerced him, he coerces this last vampire.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back in the alleyways, deep in the alleyways, Jim has returned to where he left that angel strung up, and she's gone. And he is so frustrated because she had answers and he wants them because he has questions, much like many Spawn do.
It's one of the most uniting factors.
It is a very deep. This scene is like decompressed in a way that is like, I'm like, yeah, this is of the era. This is fine. But it does give us some good mood. His hand does transform when he punches the wall in
Yeah.
frustration.
He comes
And
back and the angel's gone and it's just this bloody stake in the wall. And he's
But I
like,
don't-
she had answers. And yeah.
But I don't like the change in the color of his skin to exactly the same color as the vampire.
Yeah, it's the gray is a little similar. The gray of the
it's like
vampire is a little lighter, but yeah, they could put maybe a little bit more of a blue or purple kind of hue on
or
it.
black or
Yeah,
something. Just
well-
something to make it a little bit more distinct.
Yeah,
And but there's somebody talking.
yeah,
And he hears a voice and he turns and he looks into the shadows and he sees Victoria covered in blood.
we still don't know her
And
name.
he doesn't even realize who she is right away. But as he gets closer, he's like, "Oh my God, it's you. How did you get down? Wait, you said you knew me. You said you knew who I was, all that stuff about heaven and God. How do I fit into any of that?" And she's just mumbling to herself.
Yeah,
And he
I
realizes.
He realizes who it is, yes, and that her wings have been torn off. I will say a couple things here. One, kudos to Will Sportasio, who maybe it's a Greg Capullo thing because he is a very specific kind of bombastic artist. The depictions here of her in this moment of her like pain and tragedy, far less sexualized, much more desolate. The emotions are very appropriate, and I really love the panel where you see like her wing stumps.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of muttering to herself. Now here's where the freak shows up.
which comes so far out of left field.
Well, we saw a silhouette before. We knew he was around.
I know, but like I forgot about it because it's been a little bit. And like if you had been reading this month to month, you might have been like, wait, what the hell?
He's just
happened half a year ago.
But well, also, okay, so he comes out and he's talking about how she's now going insane. He's explaining to Jim Downing that most of an angel's power is stored in her wings and their memories and all this stuff. And soon she'll just be another human wandering the night. She says she'll turn into another one of your many homeless citizens. Now, we've had a lot of angels that didn't have wings. Angela, to be precise, as maybe the most prominent. Bootsy, many agents of heaven. Now I'm wondering, is it an elite angel thing? Did Jim Downing once have wings? Is this another new thing? This seems like Todd just being like, I guess I'm going to do this without someone there to be like, we kind of have just gone all far away from that.
Can we trust the freak in fairness?
Maybe not, but we are watching that happen to her. So like, something's happening. She is, her wings did get cut off and she seems to be like out of it. Now she'll have another moment in a second that we'll get to, but Freak, first off, Freak really also feeding the fucking fires for the Wills and Todd team up here artistically.
I was gonna say, all-time Freak panel?
So good. And an incredible freak hand job. East Coast struck by freak hand job.
I mean, that panel's great, but that close up on him, the
Oh, it's
bottom
so
panel,
good. It's so
it's
good.
so good.
Now,
It's so good.
I like the appearance of the freak here for a couple of reasons. One, he's just kind of an agent of chaos. We've
Yeah.
seen him off and on throughout the whole series, really, as just this weird passenger in the background who has showed up. He's had terrible moments. He's kind of the rickety cricket of Spawn in a lot of
It's
ways.
very true.
Like, he really is. And now he's literally been through hell. He wasn't he in hell just wandering for like a long time, maybe even in a cell in hell, I think. He
Yeah.
was like held captive. There's just this whole thing. He's been through so much, and now he's here just like, oh, he is like the Loki in a way where he has this forbidden knowledge and he has to live with it. And I think he's going to be our cog. Now, I don't know, but that seems to be the role he's suddenly playing here, and I would kind of love that.
I think the other thing that's great about the freak is that he works off panel. There's this great panel after that incredible panel where his hair is the kind of only thing hinting at him being there. And you instantly know, the same way as if it was Spawn's cape, oh, that's who that is. And I think his visual language is really, really, really strong, despite the fact that Will Sporthouse was like, I don't know, what's he wearing? Is he wearing like tattered clothes? Nah, he's just wearing like a green button up.
It's fine. I love this where Jim Downing is like, I don't care how your childhood was. What's your connection to the angel? Because I'm looking for answers, and I'll take them from whoever I have to. Now, that's sort of the opposite of Al, where he's like, I have questions, and I will not accept answers from anyone until they validate something I believe. I don't hate Jim Downing. I like Jim Downing so far. I think the idea that he's angelic and this is part of his like weird penance or something, I'm fine with that twist. I think it's more interesting than just like, well, now here's the guy who's been scheming behind Memhan's back. You know what I mean? You can't do that again. And they kind of even have earlier in that previous issue, they have Clown kind of address that where he's like, you know, they all had their schemes and plans, but there were things they didn't count on, things they didn't know, obstacles they had that we don't have. And I like that they're putting that separation there, being like, we can't just go back, even if we're bringing back the Freak and Clown and all this stuff. We can't just go back to like, well, there's an even more bad guy. We now have to deal with the other side of the coin, which is what Al dealt with less, which is the sort of confining nature of divinity.
I think that if we want to sort of not no prize this, but Al tried to deal with the overarching problem, whereas Jim seems like he wants to deal with the minutia a little bit. He wants to deal with the symptoms. And he wants to, because he recognizes that the symptoms will lead him to some sort of truth, right? That the small details are the things that will get him the answers that he wants. Whereas Al was always like so big picture focused in a way, even though his focus was Wanda, it was still like big.
There's a key difference here, and I think it is the difference between more than the heaven and hell thing, all of that, but as characters, I think it is the difference between Al and Jim Downing that, first off, Jim Downing has his own face. Jim Downing doesn't have to hide. He's not a corpse. There's nothing about him. What he doesn't have is anything to live for. He has no past. He has no history. The answers he needs aren't, how do I get my life back? It's, what even was my life? Al, from the word go, the first thing we even really know about him is he remembers his old life, and that's the thing that drove him to even make the deal. Jim Downing hasn't even made a deal that we know of yet.
Right.
From what we've learned now, he's being punished in this way. And so I think the key difference is Al knows what he lost. Jim Downing doesn't. He only knows that he did lose things.
That is such fertile ground for story that I feel like this arc hasn't touched in a meaningful way yet.
I mean, we're getting it through this characterization, but it's also kind of a surface level characterization of that. You know what I mean?
I mean, and I think we're doing a deeper read maybe of these books than not than they deserve, because I think that this book is interesting. That's why we're
We
doing the
may be
show.
putting
But
more
like,
philosophy into it than like Todd, but I'm sure, I mean, the creators of this character are not unaware of the difference. I feel like that's a very intentional change between Jim Downing and Al
yeah,
Simmons, is that Jim doesn't have a past. Al only had a past. Jim Downing wants a future. Al only wanted to go back, you know? So, but I think also, you know, we've had our sort of qualms with these issues and their contents and where they go and how they get there. There's some meandering, there's a little verbose, but I think we're doing what art deserves, which is we are reading it, taking things from the text. And much like I was talking about with Grant Morrison, who very intentionally puts these like signposts in their work so that you can kind of follow the path. But again, it's very dreamlike, like David Lynch, like I said. Here, Todd's putting enough character in the book that we can look at it and understand that is the difference. Whether the depth that we are putting in that is necessarily intended in the text or not, it's there and we're finding it. And I think that is very effective in terms of storytelling.
sure.
Again, it's a little surface level and it's a little weighed down by the reliance on so much text in the first issue. I will say this issue far less verbose. Still a lot of dialogue, but it's not.
I think the last issue struggles with, and this is the thing that we've come up against with Todd's writing in the past. He's pretty bad at juggling.
In a way,
He's pretty bad at being like, well, these characters exist, so I have to check in on them. I don't know how much of Mark Rosen we even needed in the last issue.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, it didn't make that scene didn't make me like him more or the comic. I will say, I think of all the characters that get a ton of dialogue in these issues, I like the Freak's the best.
Yeah, give it to the Freak.
Give it to the Freak because what he's saying is the most interesting and like it flows in the most sort of like readable way. It's not just Mark Rosen ranting at his girlfriend. He has a voice, and also there's a mystery in it that really belies like this guy has seen the cosmic darkness. This is the dude who has lost his sanity to like the call of Cthulhu. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is the kind of character that you want to see come back, and you want to be intrigued, not confused.
Well, and also
by their appearance.
Yes, and I think intriguing is right because I don't remember everything that's happened to the Freak across like however many 100 something issues he's been in or since he appeared. But I do remember that he's been through shit, probably shit we don't even know. And also it does make me remember all those little moments that we had with the Freak that never quite paid off, where now it's like, oh, now he's back and he has a presence in the story. And again, that's why I feel like I haven't read ahead, don't know if this is what's going to happen. This is what I would like to see based on this issue. It would be cool if he became kind of his cog, the guy who has the answers, and instead of Cog having to force Al to accept the answers, Jim has to force the Freak to like get the clues out of him.
I will slightly spoil things for you to let you know that over the next 20 issues we'll only see the Freak 4 more times.
I mean, we didn't see
Uh,
Cog all the time, so I don't know. But him being even not just like the mentor, the guide, but like sort of one of the sources of like that kind of shit, you know?
yeah, no, I hear you.
So
So we get another boner reference,
yeah,
which
the
is
freak is like, look at you, you could barely contain yourself. Your spikes are getting longer and harder. What's the matter? I'm getting you excited. And like, we get this very badass panel of Jim where he's like, she had information I intend on getting, so either you watch or walk away, but I'm getting what I need from her. And that's where he taunts him about his spikes. And uh Jim goes flying after the freak. He holds him up against the wall and he's like, enough, that's enough. I just want to know who I am and why all of this is happening. That's all I'm looking for. Is that asking too much? Which is, those are the opposite questions of Al.
yeah,
Al was like, I know why this is happening. I know who I am. How do I escape it?
yeah.
Jim doesn't even want to escape it yet.
Right. He doesn't see this as a curse yet. He sees it as just a confusion. And the freak mentions that he's that the costume is struggling to survive its bonding process, and that keys off Jim to be like, costume. Like, I thought this was me, that my body was somehow deceased.
Well, he doesn't say deceased. He says diseased.
Oh, I misread that.
Yeah, he says this body is somehow diseased. But well,
But
also
even still,
Freak is like, no, it's not. It's a, the costume is like, whatever. But he says, if you don't figure it out soon, arrest control of yourself, the masters of both chaos and order will soon unravel too. And I guess we're getting back to the elders there. Now, again, maybe elders is something like the elder gods, where
yeah.
like it is this cosmic force beyond good and evil, beyond even creation and destruction, of just nihilism and entropy. So I don't know. Again, it just feels like we're dropping references that don't quite line up, and like we're sort of meandering around that. Anyway, we get a really great page of Victoria grabbing the freak, lunging at him. I love this panel of her. She goes, I know you. And he's like cackling. He kind of looks like evil Ernie.
Yeah, totally.
uh I love this panel of his face laid back and her face like kind of looming over him. That is a very like
A little Kubrick
fucking,
stare there.
that panel is like a very Vampire Hunter D kind of like panel
Yeah,
or framing. Very
very
cool.
cool.
We're getting that manga influence back a little bit that is endemic to Portasio's art, that is like kind of a key component of it that I don't think Capullo captures. He put that
Agreed.
Western comics flow and storytelling sort of spin on it, where I think that's a little counter to Portasio's regular muscles. So we get this, honestly, she says, I know you, and whispers, and your plans. And Freak is like, she's off the deep end. She's got nothing rational to say. Don't listen to her. He says, you've just become another little freak like the rest of us. And she says, he's evil. It's kind of, they're just arguing.
We don't
And
really
he's
need,
like,
this is another point where we don't really need these captions
honestly, I don't hate this one
or
because
this
it's the
dialogue.
I don't hate this one because it's the freak. If
Oh,
the freak is
I
the
just
guy who
mean,
talks so much,
he can talk. I don't need her saying he's evil, don't listen.
oh yeah, sure. But I mean, whatever. Anyway, I love this drawing of Jim Downing, the way his mask kind of works here. And he
Yeah.
goes, Christ, has everyone gone mad? And a voice off panel says, no. We turn the page and we see that it is the full on violator. And he says, no, not everyone. And God, I love Will Portasio's violator.
This
It
one is
is
sick.
the arms like above the head. It looks so, Violator has gotten so weird, and I feel like he has one of those villain looks that, like many of the best villains, has never really gotten away from that, but it still looks different. Like Magneto. There's a billion different ways people draw Magneto, but usually he's got the helmet and the cape and the, like, So
Yeah, you can give him long hair, you can give him a different color, but you're just like, hell yeah, that's fucking Magneto. Violator, here, one, it definitely hits the gym because early Violator was very spindly and weird.
Yes,
Like
yes.
McFarlane's Violator was like felt like a strong breeze might like break him in half.
You're right.
That's not where we're at now.
No,
This
he's
is
he's not
different.
that weird spidery thing as much.
Like this feels a little bit like you stuck Violator's head onto like Colossus or something, but I'm so here for it. It looks so fucking cool. His weird bug eyes. I like that Portasio still gives us the hint of the jaw being very like underbitten.
But he
Uh
extends that sort of anatomy and like the weirdness of his anatomy, especially with him
yeah.
like jumping down in an action pose like that. It really works. It keeps everything good about the design and
Yeah.
pushes it into his own sort of vibe. So now that we're done with those issues, we've talked a lot about our overall feelings of them, but what are your final thoughts?
I think they're fine. Like I, I think that's like kind of where I land on these. And like similar to what I was saying at the top, I don't think that I think that Todd's taken a step back in terms of uh, writing, only because it's impossible to know exactly what the previous, uh, you know,
The
roles
dynamic has
were.
been changing over the course of the last several issues.
Yeah, and I do like that he's not falling back into like, well, let's do the talking heads. Just do a Frank Miller thing. Let's do the opening page that's like a splash with like an essay's worth
Right.
of captions. It's not a full on throwback to original Spawn, right? We're not doing that. It is definitely trying to negotiate between what do comics look like and read like now and what does my book do. I think the problem is that like I think from a new reader perspective, shit's kind of boring. Like I think the art's doing a lot of heavy lifting and trying to be like, look how cool this is. Doesn't it look cool? But but if you're not if if being a little bit confused by issues like these does not entice you to keep reading, then I don't know that there's a lot here for you.
I think that it is telling that most of the stuff we have found most intriguing, at least about these last couple issues, is the way it relates to the Spawn stuff we already know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we were just coming into this now, maybe it would be a different thing. Maybe we'd be like, well, who are these powers? But the idea of like chaos and order now instead of heaven and hell, obviously, what is interesting to us about that, at least to me anyway, and I presume to you on some level, is how does that relate to what we've seen before and where does that fit into what we know about Spawn?
Yeah.
The questions we have are based on how does this fit into what we know about Spawn? Where does this go? Why are these things seemingly changed or different or evolved? And I don't think it is at the level of something where it's like this only exists to fix a mistake. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, but I think it exists. This feels like it would appeal more to someone who hasn't been reading Spawn in 10 years
Yeah.
and is like wanting to come back. And maybe that is the exact intent because of course Todd's name on the cover, low print runs aside, there is a contingent of Spawn fans who will keep the title alive when they see McFarlane's name back on the cover and when they see him doing a Todd McFarlane style comic. I will
Yeah.
also say
And Capullo too.
Capullo as well, yes. And maybe that's part of why that happened. But I will also say, I think the issues, and I hate to say this, but I think the issues that Capullo did the layouts on are the ones that were the hardest slog. And I think part of that is the pacing is not necessarily of the layouts is not necessarily natural for Will Portasio.
Mhm.
I think he is forming a sort of layer between Todd and Greg, which was at one point, as you said, a very well oiled team.
Yeah.
And I think that the pacing of the art breeds a certain type of storytelling that is more verbose.
Mhm.
Because maybe, especially, not even maybe, but I think I have to guess and don't feel I'm probably too far off that having Greg doing those layouts and then Todd writing the script over the layouts, presumably Marvel method style, which is
Yeah.
how he usually prefers to work. I think that that is easy for him to sort of fall back into that. I also think that the second issue works that we read tonight works a lot better as a result because Wills Portacio is allowed to establish the pacing on his own, how he's
Yeah.
comfortable, even like the character positioning and acting and blocking and stuff. And I think it comes off with the level of intensity that is lacking in the previous two issues because they have a difference in visual language.
Mhm.
Capullo's art is way more comic book, and I don't mean that negatively at all. There is more of a slightly cinematic quality to Portacio's art here
Yeah.
because of the way he frames and paces things.
Mhm.
Whereas like Capullo, even we saw it in the first issue, he'll do those long series of panels that are just these like clips of a moment rather than showing you like the most impactful 1 second of the action. He kind of takes you in and out of it with this like rapid fire storytelling moment, which works great for Capullo. It doesn't seem as natural for Portacio, and I think that there's more push and pull in the pacing of the issues with Capullo as a result. It just feels like they're a little bit oil and water.
Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect, and I do think that I think I said it last episode. Portacio to me is not a great uh, facial like actor in the same way that Capullo was able to get really good kind of reaction shots. He was able to really
He's
snapshot
more of a
exactly the emotion that you needed in that moment.
there's a little bit more of a cartoonist edge to his faces and acting.
Yeah,
Not
and that
cartoonish, but
allowed
cartoonist.
yeah,
Again, not a
but I
negative
think
thing.
that allowed Todd to write to it a little bit better, maybe. Like there was a little bit like, oh, I understand what emotion is happening here, so I understand what part of the conversation we're in. And the other thing that I think, and I know that we're at this point a couple years out from the new 52, and probably at this point the thing that Greg is most known for is Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he's in a bit of an in-between period of
Yes, this is
what
before
am I
Batman.
gonna become?
Yes. Well, we know by Greg's own discussion that there was a period where he was kind of having trouble in the industry, trouble
Mhm.
working because of, substance use issues, which not a knock on the guy at all. I
No, not at
think
all.
that's what he said. If I am slandering him with that or whatever, I don't think that's something to be
I'll edit
ashamed
it,
of.
but
He has talked about how he has had personal challenges
sure.
throughout the late 90s and early 2000s after his Spawn sort of breakout and before his Batman sort of like superstardom. He has talked publicly about having challenges in his work life and in his personal life, which
Yeah.
again, all respect to the guy, not a knock on him or his character or his personality or anything at all, not even his work. But I
One of
think
my
you're
favorite
right.
people to interview over the years, honestly.
He's a genuinely nice and conciliatory fellow. He is a person
Yeah.
who is generous with his time, generous with his fans, generous with his words. I admire that about him. And I'm not, again, I don't bring any of that up as like a point against him, but I bring it up to say I think you're right that he's in a transitional period here where this
Yeah.
is still a couple of years away from Batman in 2011, uh, which really is what made him a superstar. Like that is what made him like a household name to fans.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, Greg Capullo from Spawn," and
Well,
then
I
it
knew him
was
from
like,
Quasar.
"Mama said there'd be days like this."
That is the most insane cover of all time.
Marvel's
We've
never
talked
been
about
woke.
we've talked about it before, but like,
Quasar
boy,
standing there pregnant, holding his stomach, saying, "Mama said there'd be days like this."
Quasar, the book that launched 1,000 fetishes, apparently.
Yeah. I'm glad there's some nerd out there going, "I'm glad that didn't affect me in any way." Not truly, not me. I think it's a great fucking boy. That'd be a great flyer. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, no, you're right. There is a transitional aspect of his art here. And again, he's also just doing layouts. I just think that 3-layer like combo,
Yeah, it's hard.
Todd just inking Wills Portacio, I think looks great. I think there are times when it's a little messier than it would be with Greg. But I think when you have the Greg Capullo of it all in the mix, it just doesn't quite, it adds a filter between, Greg and Todd, great. Greg and Wills, really good. Greg, Todd, and Wills, empirically to my eyes in these issues, that is part of what made them tougher to read. So, yeah, that's my final thoughts. I found the second issue far more intriguing, and I think that, yeah, I found the second issue far more intriguing, and I think that it does have some interesting story developments.
I think part of that, and this is my final thought, is that Todd's really trying to evolve as a writer with the, can I tell something in media res? We're going through different times. I'm going to hold things back by saying this is 15 minutes ago, this is an hour ago, this is that. I don't think that stuff works.
Right.
At all.
It doesn't quite work the way I think it's intended to.
Like, holding back Clown when we've already seen Clown doesn't really work.
Another issue with the pacing of that issue.
Yeah.
Another problem with the pacing of that issue.
And I actually think that Capullo doesn't work with that kind of pacing either. He's not, you kind of want, I think what's great about him as an artist is he can give you momentum. He is a guy that you want to build over the course of an issue. I mean, again, not to bring up his Batman run, but Court of the Owls builds in such a way that by the time you get to issue 5, which is the one where you have to start like turning
the labyrinth issue,
like it's so crazy. But he's established a visual language that by the time you get there, you're so on board as a reader that I remember buying that issue and I had such an incredible time with it because I was like, a book has never like,
well, it forces you to engage on a physical level beyond like just reading it and turning the pages.
But also like the visual language of the book had been so established over the course of the previous months that I didn't feel uncomfortable doing that.
No.
I felt on board, like I was getting on the roller coaster and I was here for it.
The disorientation is an earned part of the story.
Yeah. And here, the sort of like whiplash, which has not been part of the arc to this point, really, even though we've been bouncing around a bunch of different characters, has not, it doesn't come across as well. And I'm glad that Todd abandons it for the second issue. And I think that that's why that one works a little bit better. It also ends on a far better splash.
Wicked splash page.
Yeah.
So amazing that the issues that we have the most sort of controversial and mixed opinions on are the ones that are longer. And, I'm fine with that. And I think it's because, again, I say this a lot, especially recently, I think it's important that we're actually engaging with this material on a level of like, on an artistic, critical, thoughtful level, rather than just being like, another issue of Spawn, hated that one. Another issue of Spawn, that one was sick. I still love doing this podcast because we have episodes like this where we can really dig into it and come out with, I think, a very thoughtful and interesting discussion. And I hope our listeners think so too.
Honestly, I I think I said this to Joe Keating at the Image party at New York Comic Con in maybe like 2011, no, it had to be after that, 2014, 2015.
Is that the
Uh,
one where we ran into Kieran Gillen?
we definitely also ran into Kieran Gillen,
Yeah.
and I think I spent like $400 or $500 at the bar that night.
Didn't you have a flu shot? Is that the night that we all had a race back to David's apartment?
No. That was a
Okay.
different night. That was a
Okay, I'm
different night.
conflating different Image
Different night.
parties.
Different night.
Sorry, we're
But
spilling the tea from 15 years ago.
This Image party, it was when Glory had come out, and they did the reboot of all the Extreme
Right.
Studios books, and I
Yes.
loved Glory. I was obsessed with it. Sophie
Right.
Turner on art. I was like, I love this book.
Sophie
And I read
Campbell,
it.
I think you mean?
Excuse me. I said Sophie Turner. Sophie Campbell. Correct. And I love Sophie Campbell on art, and I was obsessed with this book. I was like, this is awesome. And mostly because the Wonder Woman book at the time wasn't great.
Right.
In my memory anyway. And I ran into Joe Keating and introduced myself, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't review your book anymore. And he was like, why? I was like, it's too good. I just kind of ran out of stuff to say. I just like can't be objective about it anymore. I can't.
I like it
I love
too
it.
much.
I really like it, and I can't. And you brought up Kieran Gillen. I didn't review every issue of Wicked and Divine either, because for the same reason.
Right. Sometimes work is too personal. I mean, look, people have there is stuff that I love, comics, movies, whatever, that has been rightfully criticized, but I just love it so much I don't look at it on that level. Like,
Yeah.
my favorite superhero comic run of all time is Kurt Busiek and George Perez's Avengers, and that whole Busiek run. And it has some issues. There are some things that are sure glaring issues in 2026. I'm not going to do Avengersography and go through a fine tooth comb with that because I just love it. It's just like
sad.
Soul food. I would do Avengers because, again, lifelong Avengers fan, maybe even more than anything else.
Well,
so
more than that, I think maybe we bring back our old.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Stay tuned, true
Stay
believers.
tuned, true believers.
George, before we go, do you have anything to recommend for folks? I know that we just recorded, so maybe you don't have recommendations in the last 2 days, but what do you got?
Pick up a pencil and make some art or draw something. I know I've recommended this before, but I'm going to recommend it again because I crammed in a lot of work in the last like 6 days. And then today I just took time off to draw. Even if it's not drawing, do something that's just like really fun for you. Allow yourself to have that time of freedom to not think about like what this particular act is contributing to like your grind. Just do something because you love it. Whatever it is, sit and watch a movie. I don't give a shit. Just give yourself a little grace and some time.
Hell yeah. I am so I'm moving right now, so I'm digging into all my stuff that's been in boxes for years at this point. And I'm going to recommend Jonathan Demme's Something Wild.
Oh,
a
great
film I
movie.
Absolutely love.
Great
a film that
movie.
could not get made today, partly because they already made it, but also because we don't really make movies like this anymore.
No, it's too quirky.
It's quirky in this like very specific way.
That is a movie I saw at like age 15 or 16 at like 2 a.m. on TBS. So it was like the network edit, but it just has lived in my memory forever.
One of my favorite films of all time.
So good. Jonathan Demme, excellent director as well.
I mean, if you like Silence of the Lambs,
yeah,
this movie is completely different.
It is, but it has a lot of the same storytelling style.
He has like an emotionality to his film work that is just I think kind of unparalleled. The only movie to me of his that feels similar is Rachel Getting Married.
I haven't seen that one.
It kind of fucks. It rules. Like it's weird and awkward and human. Anyway, Something Wild. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We really appreciate it. You can send us an email at spawnographypod@gmail.com, especially if you have a job for George writing about comics, because they know quite a bit about comics. And even more if you have something that you need written about He-Man, because she knows so much about He-Man.
Yeah.
But George, before we go, for Todd Sill of the world,
He gave his only begotten Spawn.
See you later, Hellspawn. Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lyden. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.